All right, Jesse on fire. Welcome back to the channel. So, sometimes I've got topics that are like, I'm like stretching. I'm like, I guess I could make a video out of that. And other times I'm like, good Lord, I can make 2 videos out of that one topic. Or at the very least, the 2 topics I'm going to talk about are for sure individual videos if I want to stretch them into 2. But I'm going to give you guys a special bonus today. I'm going to give you guys a dual video, like a one video with 2 topics that absolutely are their own topics for sure, okay? So one we're going to talk about is, so Jon Jones really was on juice, all right? Like I took what he said. He acknowledged that story about him hiding under the octagon was true. I've done further like backup research, and I'm just going to tell you right now, like I entertained the idea. Well, hang on, let me get to that. Then we're going to talk about Khabib saying that he wouldn't do the Ultimate Fighter with Conor for $5 billion, all right? So listen, there's all kinds of meat on that bone. So we're going to talk about that as well. Now, if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. We're slowly growing. We're getting there, slowly getting there. I've still only been doing this for 6 months. So sometimes I have to remind myself of that. It's like, dude, you had 200 subscribers in April. Now you have almost 7,000. That's pretty good for 6 months, right? So, yeah, but I'm impatient, I want to get to Chael level where I'm doing videos and I'm at 6 figures every single video, which is about 100 times what I'm doing now, but we'll get there. Anyway, so let's talk about it. So let's talk about Jon Jones first. All right. So Jon Jones admitted the story that he hid underneath the octagon. He admitted it. All right. So everybody's been wondering about that for years. I mean, like, I would say that enough people talked about it that it seemed like it was probably true. But given that, that's the kind of rumor that can just go around, and one person hears it from another person. Like, there's only a handful of people who are actually in the gym, which is actually crazy that anyone who was there talked about it, But yeah, so Jon Jones admitted it. And he said that it was because he had smoked a blunt. It was the Nevada State Athletic Commission. He had smoked a blunt and he was afraid he was going to piss hot for weed. So I have 2 things to say about that, okay? Number one, Daniel Cormier came out and he said, I don't believe that at all. I think he was cheating, and I agree with DC 100%. Now, what I was going to say earlier is I was going to say that I have always like halfway entertained the idea that that Jon Jones had previously, like when he was suspended. So when he did the hit and run and he got suspended, he got into powerlifting. Okay. Everybody knows that. So I'd always entertain the idea is like, maybe he just did juice then. Like he was off for like 2 years. So he's like, yeah, I may as well do a cycle. I'll get really strong and the benefits will still be there when I go off, when I'm competing again. I entertained that as a possibility. I'm not entertaining that anymore. I think Jon just was doing juice, right? I think he knew that the people he was fighting against were doing juice. He's a reckless guy. And he knows, back in 2014, everyone was doing juice. And so I think that he was doing juice like everybody else. And then he thought that he could beat the test because historically he was beating the test. And he was using oral turinabol or whatever, some other fast-acting steroid because it would be out of his system quickly. And then I think you saw to change the test and he started getting caught a lot. I do believe the thing where, it was still in his system. And then so when he was cutting weight, he was getting popped for the picograms. I actually do believe that because of the minimal amount that was in his system, and it probably was stored in his fat cells because that's what happens. But I think back then he was definitely on juice. I think he was just definitely on juice. And the thing about if you really want to look and go, okay, so where would it have been egregious if he was actually cheating? Like, where would that have been egregious? And the answer is in the second Daniel Cormier fight. Okay. If that was intentional ingestion, that would have been egregious. I mean, really genuinely egregious because he had already been caught, right? He had already been caught. That was rescheduled. He's going around preaching that, he's changed his life and blah, blah, blah. If he was juicing for that fight, right? That's egregious. And here's the thing. I'm looking at his last couple fights and I'm looking at his body for that fight. This is not that long ago, right? You're talking about July 2017, okay? 3 years, your body doesn't change that fast, okay? He looked incredible. for that DC fight. Like, his body looked absolutely just, you know. This is where most people would feel the need to, you know, okay, I could just say he looked incredible for that fight. He was shredded. And you look at his most recent couple fights, like, let's just look at one from, I don't know, 2019. So like, go back 2 years, you know, 2 years later, and his body looks very different. Looks very different. And if you're going to tell me that he's training different or eating different, I don't believe that. Okay? So I think that to be honest with you, I mean, I could have always just looked at those pictures and looked at the videos and just gone, okay, so he was on. But now that he admitted the thing about being underneath the cage, now, I mean, that's just, I don't believe a thing about the blunt. I think he was cheating. Which, I'm going to say it again, he's got a long way to go to be talked about in the GOAT conversation as far as I'm concerned. Because if you cheated against your number one rival, I mean, both times, you can't be in the conversation for greatest of all time, especially when GSP never pissed hot. Not once. And Khabib is never pissed hot. Not once. So you have other undefeated fighters who have cleaned out their division. I mean, GSP much more than Khabib. But Khabib is on his way there, who have never pissed hot. Right? Now, I came out as early as February of this year saying that I thought Justin Gaethje was the one who could beat Khabib. And that was after Justin Gaethje had lost. You know, like, that was before he beat Tony Ferguson. So I was on the Justin Gaethje can beat Khabib train early, right? But that's not the topic of today as it relates to Khabib. Khabib came out and said that he would not do Ultimate Fighter with Conor for $5 billion, okay? First of all, that's hilarious because, you know, Khabib already said the thing when they offered him $100 million to fight in Abu Dhabi or whatever that fight was. Like, I think it was against Floyd Mayweather. He was like, "Why would I do this?" He's like, "What? What am I going to do with $100 million?" You know, and I just, like, that is one thing I love about his culture. You know, I mean, say what you want about. Listen, I watch Sam Harris. Okay, like, I've heard the narrative that, you know, the Muslim culture is is an inherently violent one with beliefs that are really scary. I've heard all that. Okay, whatever. Okay, there's a lot of really crazy stuff in the Bible too. But when you just are objectively looking at them culturally, what do you see? Do you see a lot of variation in what they wear, like in their clothes? Honestly, like, do you see a lot of variation in what they wear? Just day to day, if they are really ingrained in that culture. Not really, right? And what's a pretty good indication of greed in general? Big variation in what you wear, right? Like a person who has, like, you know, 200 pairs of shoes. I have a problem with shoes. You know, or so many clothes that literally, like, you couldn't, if you wore you could have a different outfit every single day of the year. I mean, it's just frivolous spending. Khabib, I think, has enough money for him, all of his relatives, the next generation and the next generation, and he probably doesn't like the idea of leaving money for the next generations to the point where they would never have to work. He probably doesn't like the idea of that. So, like, when you're talking about more money to Khabib, it's not enticing to him, you know? Like, he's probably thinking, okay, we can build another center in Dagestan for training children. Like, I'm being serious. Like, I honestly believe that that's what he thinks about when he's thinking about, you know, generating more revenue. I don't think that he thinks about it the way that I would or other people do. But I think it's also even more so he's making a statement like, yeah, that would allow Conor to improve his public persona given all the stuff that he's done lately. I'm not going to give that to him. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to give that to him. Now, that opportunity might get taken away from him. Okay, I wanted to be very clear about that because Gaethje. Okay, if Gaethje beats Khabib, they are very likely going to offer that to Conor and Gaethje. You know, Conor and Gaethje get to do Ultimate Fighter because the Ultimate Fighter leading up to the fight, that's about leading up to the fight. And if Gaethje wins, that's the fight that's going to get led up to. Also this assumes that Conor fights and beats Dustin. But I heard Michael Chandler say that fight is made, that Dustin and Conor is made. But I heard Dustin say the day before that that the talks are active. So who knows? Until I hear that there's a date, I mean, I'm not going to say that it's done. But yeah, I mean, Khabib genuinely hates Conor. He hates him. And I think Conor probably hates Khabib now because Khabib beat him. But I think, like, in reality, Conor probably behind closed doors kind of laughs a little bit, like, about the whole thing. And I think Khabib, like, deeply despises Conor. I think Khabib hates Conor Conor hates Khabib because he knows how much Khabib hates him. But, like, deep down, you know, it's business for Conor. And if Khabib was honest with himself, his success is due to Conor in great gravity. I mean, he beat Conor, then he beat Dustin. Okay? He's a superstar. He was not that before Conor. He was a star in the UFC, especially for hardcores. But he was nowhere near what he is now. Nowhere near what he is now. And so at some point, he's going to have to be honest with himself and say, you know, this center that is built in my dad's name in Dagestan, I owe that to Conor. I mean, just plain and simple. Now, Conor obviously went too far for him to, like Conor, but deep down, he needs to feel some kind of gratitude to Conor because he owes a lot of what he has to Conor. He just does. So, I don't know if he feels like he needs to wrestle with that mentally, or if he just says, no, Conor's a bad person. Like, I live by these principles. Conor's a bad person. So, I don't need to wrestle with this at all, which is totally possible. You know, Conor being a bad person, you know, Khabib could say, well, what I actually owe is I owe Conor being such a bad guy, which is why people were so excited when I smashed his head in. He talked about my religion, so I crushed his head, and I became an international superstar. And his clown jiu-jitsu coach, you know, baited me, and after I didn't come out of the bus, no one was going to bait me and me not take the bait. So, yeah, I jumped the fence, and I tried to attack Dylan Dennis, and that ended up being a big bonus for, you know, all the Muslims across the world who wanted to see Conor and his entire team get their heads crushed. So, yeah. I crushed Conor's head, then I tried to crush Dylan Dennis' head. Kind of like, Jorge Masvidal after the Darren Till fight, except times 100, because my entire team fought. They went in, they attacked Conor after I'd already beat him up. Yeah. I kind of want to revisit that and know who on Khabib's team that was. Like, because, like, was Islam Makhachev, like, in that whole melee? I don't know. Anyway. That's what I got. So if you like the content, subscribe, ring the bell. Be honest. Be honest. This is the best MMA channel on YouTube. We all know this. We all know this. Although I've been enjoying other people's MMA channels very recently. Like and Submission Radio. Love it. And I've been watching a lot more Chael again. So anyway, if you like the content, subscribe, ring the bell, tell your friends. Peace.